So I will be talking about this in probably 3 sections, maybe. Anyways, um, it's pretty haunting what I have to talk about, because this is constantly, I'm always thinking about how terrifying that moment was to now. So, back in 2010, I was a massive social justice warrior. Like, I was a feminist for no reason. I had no political, talking points. I didn't have any awareness of, female disparaging, shit, but I just had a feeling that something was up in the world, and, you know, people would, on the forums, obviously, most people would be called, maybe a white knight or something, but yeah, alongside that weird, the feminism that I, for some reason, had, like an intuition that there was something that was wrong with how female were being treated. It didn't occur to me in anywhere that that was a cause, because I always saw respect, for my female friends, and I've never really seen them be disparaged in any sexist way. But that's stupid. That's my anecdotal experience. I might have been right if I had been talking multiculturally and around the world, that there's certain attitudes towards femininity, like the sacred female turning into just they don't speak, they aren't that smart, and they're not bold, and sacred masculinity is boldness, intelligence, and yada yada like that. It's fucking crap. But anyways, also in 2010, 2009, and 2010, I had this super hunter-gatherer phase. I love the idea of big families and returning to that type of lifestyle, and I would preach this all the time for some reason. And I think I heard recently that this is a common trope of young men to return to a traditional time type of mindset. And I find that kind of interesting. But yeah, once I started to read a lot more, 2013 to 2014, I read a lot of Steven Pinker, and I got into the blank slate thing, and human nature being set in stone, and violence declining. And so with that, I was thinking well, why am I a feminist then? What am I bitching about if everything's just declining in violence and everybody's getting a say and yada yada? But yeah, obviously, it was just so easy to just be talking down to when it come to my viewpoints in this way. But I was flowing back and forth still with the hunter-gatherer thing. But then it's just you would hear statisticians say the violence caused in their society is worse than World War II. And that blew my fucking mind. That's just sounds so ridiculous, right? How can we compare their standards and way of living and compare that to our complexity and stratification and the amount of politics we have combined into one, and compare it to a hunter-gatherer thing? But there's some aspects, I guess, that the hunter-gatherer lifestyle is a lot more if we went back to our own, kind of an Aryan returning to its own ethnic thing. Hunter-gatherers are spread up more and divided than our nation states are, I think. It's unfortunate that nation states rape and destroy and ruin, and they don't give you any consent in the matter when bringing you into their societies. It isn't something people just get over. Religions don't just disappear. I was listening to one of my favorite streamers, I'm not going to name drop here, but he was saying that religions just disappear because people just get over them. But that's so out of context, and it makes no sense. People don't just get over their religions because they're bored. People don't just move on from their religion. That's so dumb. Maybe I'm wrong, but overall, most religions are not spoken of because their societies were destroyed or something. But anyways, yeah, so I ditched the whole hunter-gatherer thing in 2014 to 2016, probably. probably before 2016, and I had written a ton of anti-social justice stuff back in my day, and a lot of it got ruined, so I could only account for two things. And this is very strange. So this paper right here I wrote, for some reason the inspirations came from Is Reality Real by Vsauce. That was a great video. And a story, and Did Man Create God by David E. Cummings. That was a great book. And probably a bunch of Steven Pinker, when I was still into him, written into this thing. So for some reason, part of my anti-social justice stance was a weird amalgamation of like quantum stuff and like vasopressin and oxytocin arguments based, anyways. I don't know if I want to read this whole thing because it's so whack. Alright. Yeah, alright. Hold on, guys, sorry. Alright, I'll start here. True objective reality is likely living with other phanerons at once or not at all. And a phaneron was just like how we perceive what is filtered through our psychology. And beyond that, it is what we have to interpret. And what I was trying to say here is that without our perceptions, that would be the true reality. Now, I don't know how we'd quantify that, because reality is a concept that we use to justify what is in front of us and deal with it. So, like, there's not dealing with it beyond what life has to go through. Alright, anyways. One person's red could be different from another's red, though they're bound to be in the ballpark together, lest one is actually colorblind. This distinction is useful because it's small spaces of objectivity. If a guy with a beard kills someone and 30 people see it, but only 10 people saw the beard and they reported what they saw, at least they were in the ballpark about the scenario and not the beard. Now, I feel like I was probably, like, not super okay with profiling or something. I don't know what I'm saying here. Another small space of objectivity that no one can deny is the scientific mindedness and what it sort of knows, which makes no sense there. Seeing a bird fly gracefully and suddenly we're flying through the sky. Thinking the Earth is flat, then satellite imaging Google Earth you can spin with your finger. Living in the trees to skyscrapers, nomadic people on foot to suddenly sedentary transportation. No protection from weather in a cave to central heating homes. Hunter-gathering to GMOing, which has likely become a factor in obesity as there's nothing to calm the urges of limiting us. Anarchy and survival of the fittest, which I don't know why I wrote that, to the multi-diversity decline of violence, despite the tough road of the civilization process and Leviathan control creating behavior and urge-based deterrence of law and feminization, which I borderline sounded like I was speaking in terms of a decadence thing. But this was like decadence, but in favor of it, I think. So I'm okay with that, I guess. Being in God's image and the center of the universe to realizing we are a rock somewhere in the universe. It's been documented that humanity has only been around 23 or less minutes in relation to the Earth's age, and that our observable universe, if crushed, would be as a small grain of sand. Now, again, this is where that weird quantum, like, space shit was somehow wrapping up in the politics of anti-social justice. Now, I know it doesn't sound like it yet, but I'll get there. Yeah. Things like, 1, pro-social hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin produced from the hypothalamus, which at its primal level is child-mother pair bonding, giving birth and breastfeeding. The gene for the hormones are also codes for the positive group activity, of course, depending on the mental stability and temperament, such as bipolar. Helping in meditation processes and both maternal and romantic love, uh, despite selfishness and violent discipline causing the decline in human violence in general. The moral grammar is molded possibly with extra oxytocin and vasopressin activity in the modern world / 21st century. This modern activity spike of vaso and oxytocin make it easier to accept homosexuality, gay rights, respect those weaker or smaller than you, animal abuse being frowned upon, women being in more power structures, interracial coexistence, interracial marriage, and recently, abortion and transgendered rights. Though these movements are categorized by society as, I don't know why I quoted this, political standpoints and often fragmentedly called social groups, the group dynamic of group selection, the ruining of the unity, which is why now we have obnoxious activists and social justice warriors, since every social group has its extremists. Now, this is, I don't know how I ended up from there to, space, we are a grain of sand in the universe. Like, that's so weird. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is that today, this year, I realized that the the vasopressin oxytocin paradigm shift was used by Jordan Peterson, I believe, which is disturbing to me. Like, I had no clue that that would be weaponized. I was just trying to be, like, positive about it. But, no. And you got Matt Walsh, who thinks of himself as a theocratic fascist on his Twitter. He and other people are, like, going to hunter-gatherer groups and saying, well, what is a woman? And transgenderism is just some made-up nonsense. And they're literally trying to, like, compare our societies to hunter-gatherer societies and, like, be a transphobe about it. And this blows my fucking mind, because I could never have fathomed that the hunter-gatherer stuff would be weaponized like that, literally using it for discrimination in this way. And lately, I think I've noticed that there's a lot more people, like, taking advantage of, like, polygamy in hunter-gatherer relationships, you know, like Western dudes just going over, I think, and having sex with a bunch of women. But yeah, so that's kind of sad and terrifying that all of my beliefs lately, or in the past, have come full circle into, like, toxifying it. Like, it was probably already toxic in some way, but I had this instinct of, in 2010, that family values were only being destroyed mostly because of the way technology was dividing people. So I think that was part of the reason why I was into hunter-gatherers. And I probably had other reasons. I don't know how I was a feminist while doing that, but whatever. Alright, so this other paper, it's called Tabula Rasa Justice. Now, it's a shame. A lot of this information, like the hunter-gatherer stuff, it got deleted by Facebook, or I, like, threw a bunch of information away because I was angry many years ago. So there's this huge mental gap that I have that I feel like I can never bring back, because I always used to talk about the Enlightenment era and, like, John Locke and Rousseau and Hobbes in terms of their relation to how they thought about the state, and Leviathan having taken in hunter-gatherers and doing what they will with the people on a mass scale, whether it was for good or for better or worse, you know. It's so unfortunate. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, Tabula Rasa Justice. Social justice warriors are the new blank slate, like John Locke and the Enlightenment, using the blank slate against the church and tyrannical monarchies. The the millennial generation, including college universities, becoming activist social justice warriors that strike out towards the rights revolutions, freedom of speech, and preaching political correctness. Both efforts had their correct shining moment when blacks and whites were separated by rights. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were in the right context based on their time and place for their social justice activism and to make sense, just like the blank slate had its correct usage. Old school religious beliefs taught to value the social instead of the body. Old school religious beliefs taught to value the soul over the body, not to mention the mind, which was mostly misdivided into the soul. God is behind everything until the blank slate stated we are created on earth by our environment like a piece of paper, aka free will. New Age social justice is mostly segmental and for a specific group, becoming the monsters that put the minorities in the past. Feminism, race rights, and basic all-around citizen sovereignty to coexist have reached their inflation periods. Like crime prevention and the dollar/economic system, social justice in the age of American austerity, simple things become triggers. Now, I feel so ashamed writing this because I had no grounding of historical awareness. I didn't search for actual political rhetoric as much. I just was caught up in a few people online seeming obnoxious. Oh man, I have so much more I had to say about this, but it's a good thing. I didn't know where I would end up if I continued writing about this, because the last title I remember that I put down was something about use a modern day victimization, and I feel like that was gonna tread on the minorities that were mostly discriminated against, like Latinos, Latin American people, and African Americans, like that. I think I was really gonna start to hammer home how this is ridiculous and we need to stop worrying about them. Oh my god, I can't believe I almost took that route. I don't know when I started jumping off the anti-SJW thing, but man, alright. I was aware that there was something wrong with the economy and the division of family. And this is all where it starts. This is what the right radicalizes people into. Like young men who are disenfranchised or something like that. Like, I lived in poverty for so many goddamn years. And all the right would say is just minorities are being treated better and blah, 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 blah. And with my awareness, with my half understanding of with the economy being fucked and wanting to return to nature, traditionalism, hunter-gatherer stuff, all of this stuff was going to cement into the worst possible element of who I could have become. And that's terrifying. It really is. I feel bad for anyone who's still stuck in the anti-SJW shit, because I sense a need to return to somewhere, and the economic decline, and somewhere along the line it was true, but alright, sorry about that rant. See ya.